Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us on Wisdom Wednesday. I really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to get to talk to you about all things advocacy. I would love to just quickly hand it over to you, first and foremost, to introduce who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ashley. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to get a chance to talk with you about advocacy and all the things that we're doing at MBA for our members. So I'm Rachel Kelley. I am now the Vice President of Legislative Affairs. So I now focus on one of the quadrants for lobbying on Capitol Hill, which is the House Republican quadrant. But previously, for over 2.5 years, I was the Associate Vice President of Political Affairs and handled our advocacy programs at MBA and love that. And that's still something that's a huge to my heart. And so I want to talk about that today and how our impact and all of our MBA members can get more involved.
That's great. I think one of the key pieces that I would love to start with is really just kind of explaining the different areas within MBA that focus on advocacy. So I know that we have kind of the advocacy side and the legislative side. So if you kind of want to explain
Yeah.
what both of those are, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our legislative and political affairs department, we have our boss, Bill Kilmer, and then underneath that on the legislative side, so he's our chief lobbyist, and then we break it down into four quadrants. So we have four different folks that help and that advocate every day as our jobs on Capitol Hill to federal lawmakers and their staff. And those quadrants are broken into the Senate. So you've got a Republican and a Democrat person. And then the House side, you've got a Republican and a Democrat. So what we really do focus on the areas and the committees of jurisdiction. So in the House and the Senate, you have committees that any legislation would come under that really affects the real estate finance industry. We do get to know more than just those members who are on those committees. For example, I would focus on the House Financial Services Committee, and now the Republicans, as of this election cycle, are in control of the House, and then the Senate, they have the Democrats are in control. So then you would have a chairman on the House side is now Republican, and obviously the chairman on the Senate side would be a Democrat, and then you have ranking members from either party. So again, we focus mainly on that for some of the issues that come up. One of the things we're really excited about, and folks can go to MBA.org to MAA, which is our grassroots. We actually have a abusive trigger leads bill that we're supporting against abusive trigger leads. We've got two calls to action, one in the House and one in the Senate. The Senate bill actually just dropped in December before the Senate went on recess for the holidays. So again, I'll get into that later, but that's something that we really focus on and how I work day to day with my colleagues that are still in the political affairs that are working on the Mortgage Action Alliance, which is our MORE PAC, which is our political action committee, and then our national advocacy conference that's coming up, how it's all together. So we have sort of the lobbyists that focus every day, work with staff. We help to get bills introduced. We stop bills that would damage our industry and would hurt our industry. We really, a big part is education of Capitol Hill staffers. I like to say that a lot of those staffers are sort of 6 feet wide and really 6 inches deep, which again, they have to be, right? There's a small office. They've got to have a million things in their portfolio. You know, financial affairs might be one of them. Housing might be one of them. But what do they really know? What do they really know about mortgage? What do they really know about commercial multifamily? You know, and again, they really look to us, which is one way. For us as a lobbyist, I work very closely with the policy folks, both in our residential and our commercial multifamily on honestly a daily basis. We got a bill the other day that we had supported last Congress and wanted to make sure that it was something that our commercial multifamily members would support again. So really work with them. They're sort of, like I like to say, like a think tank that MBA has, our own little think tank of our policy experts. So working with all different departments to make sure that we're advocating on behalf of what our members want. And as you know, our members guide us, right? So I know the trigger leads bill and the trigger lead support came out of, our residential board of governors, and that was a directive that we got. And we really are excited to be able to introduce that, and working with other folks in DC, other organizations where, some of our members might also be members of those various organizations, as well, to make sure we're all kind of pushing this bill in the same direction. So it's fun. I will say one of my day does not look like the next. And so on that side, it's really exciting to be able, again, to work for the real estate finance community.
That's really great. Something you said that kind of sparked something that I would love to dive into a little bit deeper, and definitely something that I think everybody should know that's really specific to what MBA does and why your job and our job is so important, is the education of the legislative staff that you guys are dealing with, like on the Senate and housing side. Because like you said, they're 6 feet wide and 6 inches deep. They don't know a ton about the mortgage industry and the finance industry. And that's where MBA comes in. And because we have all of the knowledge, we have members that have all of the knowledge, we have our think tank, our policy team that has all of the knowledge of what's working, what's not working, why that bill doesn't work, or different things like that. And that's why we advocate for our members. So I definitely think that that piece is extremely important for our members and anybody who wants to become a member of MBA to really understand. And that's why it makes our job so important and the MBA so important to the industry.
No, and exactly. I mean, I would say, look, our jobs, the jobs and the existence and livelihood of our members really does depend on, a strong real estate finance industry. And, MBA advocacy is a critical part of that, because it is that voice. It's that voice on Capitol Hill. We also have an amazing state and local group. It's our voice, and they're constantly, playing whack-a-mole as well and keeping up with what's going on in all 50 state capitals. It really is that, and it really is important. And this is where I insert, but we need our members to tell their story. And no matter where you are in your career, you do have a story to tell. And there is a need to be invested. And I would say my big plug for the National Advocacy Conference, which is coming up a month early, March 19th and 20th here in DC. It's a great way for if you've been to 17 NACs or if you haven't been to any. This is just a great way to jump in, to get to know folks. It really is a conference unlike any other MBA conferences. It's all member types, it's all member levels. You C-suite to somebody who's been in the industry for 2 years. And you're able to, we pair you up in your states, and you're able to go to your elected official. So your house member that's, you reside either your work or your home. We love to use your home address because you vote for them. And you get to meet with them or their senior staff and say, hey, this is important to me. This is important to my job. This is important to our livelihood, and explain to them the issues. Because again, I always like to say, like, tell your story. And I think, we'll have some staffers on Capitol Hill that are like, oh, I know, I've had a mortgage before, but again, they've signed the papers, they've had a mortgage, but Ashley, they don't really know the process until, they're really digging in. And again, I know they don't have time to take the Psalm 1 and 2 classes, and I wish they would, they should. But no, I mean, they don't have time for that. So that's really what I would say to anyone, no matter where you are in your career, is not only is the networking within members fantastic. Again, C-suite all the way down, all across the country, all different companies. We have a commercial multifamily track, we have residential, and we bring everyone together. But again, it is a point for you to start those relationships with your elected official, your federally elected officials here. So, we do it every day on behalf, but I really would say, your elected official does care about you as the voter. And especially, I always like to say, they know if you take the time to do a call to action, which is our Mortgage Action Alliance. As I mentioned, we have 2 on trigger leads right now. That they know if you're willing to take action, then you're more than likely going to vote, maybe for them, maybe against them, but they listen to you. They hear that. That's one of the things that MBA is a very credible and trusted voice here in DC, and has been, I think, for almost 115 years. And, I have a lot of folks that are on the Hill that they really reach out to us, and they care, and they want to know what MBA thinks about issues and where we stand on issues. And I think I know that that's because of the reputation, because of our members, because of what we built here. And it's really important that we continue to do that. And we need our members, again, no matter where you are in your career. It's important to care about what happens. And not to go on my tangent, but I know you know me. So, I know that it can seem what happens in DC is distant, is dysfunctional, and I would agree with that. Um, but it really affects our professional lives on a lot of levels. I was in another organization, real estate organization, years ago. So it was like the 2010s. And I remember my members who were older telling me about the 1986 Tax Act, which of course, I was like, when, what? I know you probably weren't born. I was very young. But the commercial multifamily sector did not have a voice at the table. They didn't have a seat at the table. And I remember even then in 2010, they were talking about how it devastated their industry. They ended up they didn't get the tax breaks that like the home builders and MBA worked for because they had seats at the table. And it just, again, I know Bill Kilmer likes to say, and it's my favorite, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. And again, that's what we constantly are fighting for, but we have to have our members being a part of the Mortgage Action Alliance, thinking about engaging with more PAC on a personal level, and again, attending the National Advocacy Conference and being involved with their state and local MBAs. It's very important to all of that process to have a voice.
I would agree. And a couple things come to mind. One, I want to dive a little bit more into the MA calls to action. But
Yeah.
before we do that, I want to make the plug for NAC. For the impact members, we do have the impact rate. So please make sure if you are 35 and under that you take advantage of the impact rate. We have events for you that are specific to young professionals in the industry. We have a great breakfast that has people from Capitol Hill coming to speak directly to our impact members. So I just want to make sure that that's out there to the listeners,
Yes.
as well as all of the impact members. And if you have any questions, please let me know and I can help you from there.
Yeah.
The second thing that I really want to dive into before we move on is the specifics around MA, because I think this is one of the easiest ways for people to get involved and kind of get their foot in the door within advocacy in any front, whether it's MBA advocacy or just wanting to learn more about advocacy in general. I think MA, our Mortgage Action Alliance, as you mentioned, is one of the easiest and best ways because it is free. It's our grassroots advocacy network. So can you explain a little bit about what we do on MBA side, kind of drafting it for you and how they go about sending that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we looked at it many, many years ago, and we're saying, how can we make this easy as possible? This may be my job day in and day out, but it's not for our members, right? They have their day jobs, and again, we love them to come up NAC, but we know they can't, be there all the time, crafting emails and picking up the phone and calling their elected official. So what MA does, and it's a great integrated piece that we have that enables, if you're logged in as your MBA membership, which I know most people save that and they're able to, when they're registering for anything, it's the same thing. We'll actually pre-populate all your information and allows you to not only send one from your work address, which is probably the one pre-populated, but you can also put your home address. So you can actually send, double the number of senators. So if your company is located in Wisconsin, but you live in South Carolina, you can send to 4 senators and 2 congresspeople. So basically, and we also do them on the state level, but I'll focus on the federal right now. So when you join MA, again, takes less than 30 seconds. And again, it's all under the MBA.org advocacy. If you look up the Mortgage Action Alliance, it'll pre-populate and you can sign up. It's very easy. And then you can look on calls to action. And we actually have the ones that are live. And what those are is we populate the letter to you. We explain everything that the legislation that we're either for or against is doing and how it affects the real estate finance industry. And then we also have crafted a letter, which you are then an email that you are able to then edit. And usually it starts off with, I'm in the real estate finance industry, but you're able to say, if you're a congressperson, you're able to say like, hi, Jim, it's so-and-so. You're able to edit that and take stuff out, add more things, add specific stories, or just send it as is, which literally takes maybe 45 seconds, if that. And again, you could do 2 different addresses, one where you live and one where you work. So The reason of that is that I know there's several ways that we've been successful, but I know back in 2020 the adverse market refinance fee was huge, and it was going to be very detrimental to the mortgage industry when we were already in a time of COVID and the uncertainty. And I want to say we had 100,000 emails that went up, and again it was a regulatory issue, but we needed Congress to do something. So by sending those emails, we literally had members call and say, cease, desist. We're gonna get with the regulators, and we're gonna tell them that this is something they can't do. So it's a tool that has real time consequences. There is power in numbers, and that is why we do want to keep up. We're probably around 60,000, 64,000 folks. Again, mod does need to be an annual, but if you take action, that renews you. And again, that's less than 20% of our industry. It's something that's free. We have no ask to it. And we don't send a lot of emails. We don't spam you. You will be asked if you want to join a quarterly webinar with me and my colleagues to hear what's going on Capitol Hill. You don't have to. And again, we send out calls to action federally. We break that into how it affects our type of membership. And then if you're in a certain state, we also, like I mentioned, we partner very closely with our state and local MBAs, and they're able to use MA as well. I know we've done it on the CRA issue in Massachusetts, Illinois, New York, and California for obviously our residential folks. That's been detrimental in those states. So we've used it in different ways. I know we partnered with the realtors in Massachusetts. There was one, I believe, last year. So we're able to use that in order to talk to our folks that are members in that state. And again, it's free. That's, again, you said that's the first thing you can do. I would say if folks want to get more involved, come to NAC, the National Advocacy Conference. As Ashley said, the impact rate is $99. And, again, it's just a great time. It's a great 2.5 days or 2 days, whatever you're able to do. Third thing is, get involved with MA. We've got state captains. We've got other ways to get involved at sort of a leadership level that we're happy to talk with folks about. And again, reach out to us. We put together meetings with elected officials, especially the federal, within states and districts, if you want to do that. Again, think about getting involved personally with MORPAC at whatever level. So there's many ways to get involved and to give back, which I think is what we should all do to make sure, we have this great industry. I think that's given us all so much.
Last thing I think that I would love to ask you is, so I know there's a lot of impact members who are maybe like operations staff or servicing staff, loan officers, processors, closers, any range of that. And they a lot of times don't really think that they either have a voice, or they don't think that what's happening on Capitol Hill or any of the advocacy issues really impact them, because they're operations staff. They don't really see the day-to-day decisioning that goes into like setting the policies and procedures, or setting the rates, or setting different things that really happen on the back end. They don't really see what that means, or understand what that means, or maybe just don't have the opportunity to learn more about the legislative side of the industry. And so what would you say to the industry professionals who are kind of doing the day-to-day tasks of operations, or maybe as a loan officer?
I would say, first of all, thank you for doing the Lord's work. We appreciate it. No, I mean, I would say the health of our industry, the health of the real estate finance industry behooves all of us to be involved. And I would say that would be my biggest thing, is that I don't think anyone's too small or too, oh, just this part. You're an important part of your organization, or otherwise you wouldn't have a job. I mean, the fact that our industry has shrunk a little, I think those folks, that's even more. It's tightened. It's kind of noticed that what's important. And I think we can't sit on the sidelines. Obviously the residential side and the commercial multifamily side had some of their best years, and we've contracted a little bit. Looks like this year it's going to be a little bit better toward the end of the year. But again, we're all an important part of it. And I would say no matter, what your title is or how many years you're in the industry, we really can't afford to sit on the sideline. And I think that's the interesting thing, especially if you're in LO and operations, you know 5,000 times more about how the mortgage industry works than the staffer on Capitol Hill, who's a chief of staff or a senator. Like, come up, share that knowledge, right? Come and share that, send that email in. Again, being involved, we try to make it, I want to say, as easy as possible. But there's no drawback to being involved. That's what I would say to them. There's no drawback for taking 30, 45, 60 seconds to register for MA, for when you get the calls to action, taking those 30 seconds and doing it. There's no negative. There's only a plus in learning what you can do. And the final thing I would say is that sometimes, a lot of times, things that happen federally have unintended consequences. And that's what we're fighting for, is that a senator might have meant, oh, I want to stop this, in the healthcare industry from having, these sort of things that are happening that, bad actors. Well, it ends up getting the mortgage industry. They don't mean to, but they end up, so we have to stay vigilant. And a part of that is our members. And so, I know there's many other things to be involved besides advocacy. I know, Ashley, you talk to our members and councils and committees all the time. I would say also be involved in those. That's how we get our folks that testify in Congress. That's how we get our information, our policy, and our white papers. Like, we need your knowledge. So nothing is too small. Be a part of MA, come to NAC, be involved in MBA. We need you. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate you being part of Impact and a part of my Wisdom Wednesday. And thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.